Hello everybody and welcome back to Gardens and Crystals with me, Wesley Peterson, and today I have an update video for you all about my Monstera Thai Constellation. And this plant, when I bought it, I was ecstatic and I made a Raid in the Wrap video about that, so you can go back and see that. But I want to show you how my plant is doing right now, because I have my Monstera jungle behind me here with my king and my queen, and now I've brought my Monstera Thai Constellation back from my crystal cottage to our indoor terrace garden here to live with the rest of my Monsteras, because I just think this look behind me here is absolutely amazing. So let me get my Thai Constellation and bring it in so you can have a closer look at it. So just look at this, everybody. Look how wonderful my Monstera Thai Constellation is looking. And you can see there is one leaf here that has fenestrations and slits in it, and it's looking wonderful. Then I have another leaf here that is an immature leaf with no slits and fenestrations, but it's also wonderful. And then I have a little baby leaf down here and down at the bottom. And there's one at the back here also with no slits or fenestrations, but it doesn't matter. This plant is absolutely gorgeous as it is, and this plant actually I really enjoy just as much without the slits and fenestrations, because it's got so much variegation going on in it with this lovely limey creamy colour variegation that it's just gorgeous in ever which way it looks. So this plant seems to be very happy at the moment, and I am overjoyed. And I'm so happy that I can have it with the rest of my Monstera deliciosa plants behind me. Now, some care tips and facts about this plant. This plant, the Monstera deliciosa plant, the original plant, comes from South America, Mexico and Panama regions and things like that. And the cultivation of this Monstera deliciosa Thai Constellation has been created in Thailand, hence the name Thai Constellation. So that is the background behind this, which was actually a defect in the plant, which has become an absolutely beautiful variety all of its own. So we get to enjoy this absolutely and beautifully mottled plant. The leaves are absolutely gorgeous. The leaves are very unique on each and every plant, and every single leaf, they have unique patterning on them. This plant is a vining plant, but it doesn't grow in exactly the same kind of structure as a Monstera deliciosa, which can go upright. This plant seems to want to grow more kind of forward with its leaves as it goes along, but it does vine up. And it has variegation all the way through the petioles and the stems, all the way up into the leaves, and that's absolutely wonderful. It's a plant that really does need bright, indirect light to be happiest, because if it has a lot of areas with the creamy white variegation, there is no chlorophyll in those parts of the leaf, and so the plant has a harder time photosynthesizing. So keeping it in a darker area would cause the plant to have to work double as hard to be able to produce the food it needs to live. But conversely, this plant should never be in bright direct light, because all of the white variegations will burn out, will brown out, and the plant will not cope with that at all. So you need to find a very good balance of bright indirect light in your apartment, or if you're having this plant somewhere outside where it's very warm. The plant likes to be in a temperature between 18 and 25 degrees and upwards, but not too cold. This is a plant that comes from a warm, tropical kind of area and loves humidity. So if your plant starts getting any browning on the tips or the edges of the leaves and so forth, it's because your plant is drying out. Or conversely, it could also be that you're overwatering your plant, because if it starts yellowing out, then you're giving the plant too much water and the water is not evaporating out of the soil. The plant is sitting in water. That is not very good for this plant at all. It likes to stay moist, and this plant actually needs to be slightly more moist than your normal Monstera deliciosa varieties. So keep the soil moist but not wet or soggy, definitely not sitting in water, and make sure the plant has a breathable pot, like a terracotta pot, which this one is in, an absolutely beautiful terracotta pot, so I know that it's breathable through the side, through the bottom and the top. So I can water this plant, but I know that it won't be saturated too much, and I know that the water will be able to evaporate, that the plant is not taking up and using for itself. So that's very important. Bright indirect light and moist soil, two key factors. Another very important key factor, as I just said, is the humidity. Keep the plant in a room with humidity. It likes around 60%. That would keep it very happy. If the air in the room is too dry, the leaves are just going to brown out for you. They're going to crisp up and it's not going to work. This is a very sensitive plant actually to keep happy. The soil, make sure you're using a very good aerating soil, so you can get a mix, a peat mix, mix in perlite, mix in bark, all sorts of things that you have around you that can aerate the soil, keep it loose and aerated so that the water can filter through and the roots can breathe. It's very important that the roots can breathe in this plant. I can't stress this enough. It will root rot out for you very easily if there is not enough air circulating around the roots of the plant. This plant can be susceptible to all sorts of bugs like many other plants, so thrips, mealybug, spider mites and so forth. If you see such things, you can wash the leaves off with a dish soap and water. You can get neem oil and wipe over the leaves. You can go and spray off. The first thing you should do is go and spray off your plant in the shower or wash it off somehow with water, and then go in, apply whatever you want to use on the leaves to try and dislodge anything that might be on them, and then you can wash over the leaves again. I just want to go back to the watering again. This plant is very sensitive to the buildup of salts in the water and any other artificial things that are in your water. So wherever you live, there's going to be different kinds of things in your water. So the best kind of water would be to use filtered water or distilled water. But if you are using tap water, please let the water sit on the side for 24 hours, reach room temperature, and that will help some of the substances that may be in the water to evaporate out. Because if your plant gets a buildup of salt or other chemicals, it will start browning out on the edge of the leaves and so forth, and you will start seeing that your plant starts to deteriorate. I do use the tap water here in Sweden. The water here is quite soft, so I am getting away with it, but I do see that this plant does get browning patches and so forth. And another thing about that, if the leaves get browning patches that are drying out around the edge and so forth, you can go and trim those off, following the shape of the leaf or so forth. Trim those off, but keep the rest of the leaf, because the rest of the leaf is viable for your plant to carry on photosynthesizing. You do not need to go in and cut the whole leaf off. Only if you see that the leaf has some kind of damage which is spreading all the way across the leaf or down the stem or anything like that, you can prune that whole thing off, because you don't want that to spread to the rest of the plant. But if it's just drying out around the edge and so forth, clip that off and leave the rest of the leaf so the plant can carry on photosynthesizing. It's very important that the plant has as many leaves as possible in your home if you haven't got the brightest, beautiful indirect light for this plant. Okay, so lower light conditions, you do really need your plant to be able to keep as many leaves as possible. It's very important to make sure the leaves are very clean and clear so that the plant can photosynthesize as much as possible as well. So go in and clean them off with water. You can use a cloth, you can shower them over, do whatever you need to do, but make sure the leaves stay clean so that the plant gets as much light as possible to be able to carry on living. It needs to be able to photosynthesize. This plant is absolutely gorgeous. I will say that it's not going to be as easy as your green Monstera deliciosa plants because of the variegation, and that goes also for the different varieties of variegated Monstera there are out there. So just remember, you're just going to have to give this one a little bit more extra care by just watching it and seeing what's going on. So I just think this plant is doing wonderfully. Look at those leaves again, close up. And I'm happy that I bought this plant, and I'm happy that I can join it in with my other Monsteras so I get a lovely jungle effect going on. So now I just want to plot in some pictures so that you can see this plant closer up and together with my other Monsteras because they're just gorgeous together. And let's just appreciate the wonder of this beautiful Monstera Thai constellation. So I hope you really enjoyed seeing this plant closer up. My lovely little plant that has at least 2 new petioles on the way up. I can see very small, but they're on the way out, which tells me that my plant is happy, and that just makes me feel so good. So all I have to say now is thank you very much once again for watching Gardens and Crystals with me, Wesley Peterson. Please remember to like, subscribe and hit the bell so you know when my next video will be uploaded, and I will see you again very, very soon. Goodbye.